And welcome back to the Social Work Race podcast. The time is 20 to 10. I've been trying to teach myself to get to bed by about 10:30 because I'm trying to really put on my business mindset hat and the self-development hat, my self-care hat, and it's cold season, and I did say, I did say that I would try and stop saying in my podcast. I've been listening back and I'm kicking myself because I say a lot. It's something that I notice politicians do a lot because they're trying to gather their words. And I think that if I speak through my heart, I say a lot less. So yeah, it's cold season. I'm due to get mine now. I think it's just coming on me. Appreciate that you've been listening in the past. I've been looking at the stats and I'm just appreciating that people are actually taking notice of the podcast. I really want to get this out there to the student social workers and the newly qualified. But this podcast is for everyone. But I think it's fair for me to say that my heart is with students. Why? Because originally I was struggling with my studies and couldn't find anything out there for me as a social work student. That's why I created this channel. And so I've been away for a while, and the reason is because I've been hitting the TikTok pretty hard. In fact, I could go harder, but TikTok is quite addictive. I've been putting posts out there about social work, questions around social work, dilemmas around social work, cases around social work, and it's been an interesting journey. And TikTok it's just out there, and there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. I'll get to it in a moment, but just to explore a little bit about what I've been doing. It's been trying to get the voice of the people as to how they feel about social workers and the issues that they have with social workers. Because the truth is, especially if you're just coming into the field, you're on your back foot. You're on the defensive immediately. And it's whenever you get a referral from work, a new family or person on your case. And whenever I talk about social work, I'm talking predominantly from a children and families perspective because I've not worked in adults before. I found that you're on the defensive because you're immediately judged. And so it's been interesting being on TikTok because I went into the deep end of social media and decided to get the voice of the people by asking them questions and giving them dilemmas. And I have found that there is a lot of hate or a lot of apprehension, a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of misinformation out there when it comes to social workers. So if you choose to come into this field, I just want to encourage you with one piece of advice around social work. Please take this on, because it's not my opinion that I'm going to give you today. It's the opinion of the people. And so I've put some posts out on my phone now, and I'm just thinking, let me turn it down. I'm just thinking, what posts have I put out there? I've even asked the question. I asked a question shortly ago on the Social Work Race channel on TikTok. If you were a social worker, what would you do differently? Yeah. And I've put a post out there. Gosh, how long ago did I? Just bear with me. I'm gonna get it. I put this post out a while ago. I've said again. Sorry, that's two. What should be done in social work? Posts like that. Child exploitation, ASY advice. What would you do differently as a social worker? This is one of my biggest posts was, what's your biggest complaint with social workers? And the feedback was pretty much consistent and overwhelmingly the number one complaint was this. I think it's a unanimous decision. They don't listen. Did you get that? They don't listen. And this caused me to think, well, what do you mean they don't listen? Because social workers go in the house and they ask questions. What do you mean they don't listen? And it's a pretty broad subject, and we won't cover it all here. But I found that what people might mean when they say we don't listen is that they don't feel heard because the outcomes that they expect or want, or the help that they're crying out for, we're unable to provide it. Or we make a different decision from what they expect us, the decision that they expect us to make. So social workers are just hated, and the consensus spreads through society. Not only that, and I've done previous podcasts as you've seen, where the media has really painted an ugly picture of social workers. Number one, I think, was EastEnders most recently, and then also I watched Panorama episode, which angered me a lot because the way that they represent social workers and social work is damning. These guys should be held to a level of account. Our jobs are very, very complicated because you sometimes, for example, build really good relationships with families and they think you are going to judge in their personal favor, but we know that they're at risk, and so we break relationships with people because we see that the risks are high. Sometimes we do have to suggest, three times there. Sometimes we do have to suggest the removal of children or make decisions that are really against what they want, and so we're hated. We're angered because we have, in a sense, we have a high level of power. And so when they say they don't feel listened to, I kind of understand what they're saying. So how can we manage that? And something I've learned to do now, I have strengths and I have weaknesses as an individual and as a social worker, and who I am and what I am and being a social worker are very intertwined. One of my strengths is that I work really well with people in general. So service users, when I read the most serious referrals, I have this way of, for most families, even the apprehensive ones, is to win their trust. And one of the ways that I do that is to actively listen. I'm also honest about my role as well. And I've got this way of getting the family to cooperate by being very honest about what I'm doing here. Getting them to see through my eyes, but making sure at the very beginning and throughout, making sure that they know that I've heard them. But I also have, I also have conversations with them so that they can really understand my position as well. So in my current role, I work in the assessment team, and half of the families I work with have never had social services involvement. Half of them are apprehensive to work with us. Some of them, and the other half shall I say, not some of them, but the other half have had social services involvement, and most have had negative experiences. They feel judged from the school, the police, maybe the health team, but definitely social services. So my question is, how do I build that back? Because I've known, and I've said this in previous podcasts, that without relationships, you can't really do much with a family. There would be a level of compliance at the best, but it would be useless all the same, as if they weren't working with us. So I have that gift to do that. That's my skill. And I'm number 4. So I'm encouraging you to convince the family you're working with, but only after you make sure that they know that you know that they know that they've been heard. If that doesn't happen, I think you're going backwards and you're working against them, really. So I guess a reflective question you could ask yourself is, what do you think families mean or individuals mean when they say they do not feel heard? And then believe me, that was probably about 80% of all responses from those 3 posts, and they were in their hundreds and some thousands. Try not to allow your title, your badge, and your duties overshadow the importance of building relationships with people. Try not to let that happen. Rather, the groundwork of building a relationship or building trust or allowing people to feel heard is really what gets them on your side. And so I've had families who did not want to work with me, and I've convinced them that they can. Number 4 or 5. Please take the time out to do that. Don't rush this point. Don't rush this with the family. Get that done at the very least. And then you can convince them to work with you. Now, for those of us who don't have experience with families, working with families, we're coming fresh into the game of social work. You might think you need to just tick your boxes. Actually, can I encourage you? You need to take the most important time out to let them know that you are there for them, to help and support them. Let them know that you understand that they may well have been let down before, but this time round, you are there for them. Key stuff. I could talk all day about this because, again, it's my area of strength. You have any questions? Let me know. Go and visit my TikTok page and share it as well. And share this podcast. I really appreciate it. Hopefully this was helpful for you. And there are more topics to come. Have a good night. Scientific power, my mental violence will shower, devour at a crazy rate.